Sarah Martinez, 28 years old, lying in a hospital bed, 8 months pregnant, fighting for her life and her baby's future. Her family is supposed to be there with her, but they're not. They're nowhere to be found. Why? Because while she's fighting for her life, they're in the parking lot, dividing up her future. How far would you go if everything you ever trusted was taken from you? If the people you loved betrayed you for money? Before we dive in, drop a comment and let us know where you are watching from. We would love to hear from you. If you enjoy stories like this, be sure to like the video, subscribe, turn on the notification bell, and share it with someone who would love it too. Sarah Martinez was supposed to be living the dream. At 28, she had everything anyone could want. A successful Harvard MBA, a loving family, a baby on the way, and a future she was set to inherit. But instead of celebrating her pregnancy and impending inheritance, she was alone in a hospital room, wondering why her family wasn't there to support her. While Sarah was battling through contractions, her family was making deals outside. They were making sure she wouldn't get what she was promised: the $847,000 inheritance and 40% ownership of her father's construction company, a life-changing amount of money. But they didn't care. They were already plotting. Her family was cutting her off, and they were doing it for the money. But what they didn't know, what they couldn't have known, was that Sarah had a gift, a mind that could change the world if only she had the chance. But right now, Sarah was on the edge of giving birth, alone in a sterile room, no family around to celebrate or support her. She had nothing but a phone buzzing with missed calls, all from people who had promised to be there when it mattered most. And when she finally checked the text message, it was brutal. "We sold the house, transferred the accounts. You're on your own." That was it. A single text. That's when Sarah knew. This wasn't just about money. This was about everything they had taken from her: the trust, the love, the future. But in the middle of this betrayal, with tears streaming down her face as she held her newborn daughter, Sarah made a vow. She whispered it into her baby's ear. "I will give you everything they tried to take from us. Everything." Sarah had never been one to back down. Sure, she was a brilliant tech mind, but she'd hidden that part of herself away for years. She'd spent too much time trying to fit into her family's expectations, thinking that inheritance and business ownership were her only paths to success. But this was different. This wasn't just about money anymore. This was about proving something bigger. A week later, Sarah was in a tiny rundown apartment with her newborn daughter, Emma. The room was cramped, the wallpaper peeling, no crib, just a laundry basket for the baby. Sarah sat at her laptop, exhausted, coding late into the night. She wasn't just trying to survive, she was working on something bigger, something that would change the way people saw her and the world. She had an idea. It wasn't just any idea, it was a tech innovation in maternal health. An app that could predict complications in pregnancies using AI and wearable sensors. The concept had been part of her Harvard thesis. Her professors had called it revolutionary, but Sarah had always felt obligated to join the family business. The inheritance was hers. The business was hers, or so she thought. But after her family stole everything, Sarah realized this was her shot. She wasn't going to wait for them to give her a chance. She was going to create her own future. Months turned into years. Sarah fought through the rejection after rejection, submitting her startup idea to accelerator after accelerator, only to be told, "No, thank you." But then, one day, Techstars said yes. The investment? $120,000. It wasn't much, but it was enough. By the end of the second year, Sarah's company, Maternal Tech, had already helped thousands of women by preventing complications like preeclampsia, gestational diabetes, and preterm labor with 94% accuracy. She wasn't just building an app, she was saving lives. The media caught on, and soon Maternal Tech was a household name. Hospitals were lining up to partner. Investors were seeing the potential. By year 3, Sarah was standing in front of venture capitalists pitching her technology, her 5-year-old daughter Emma at her side, coloring quietly in the corner. They were impressed. They wanted in. The breakthrough came, a $50 million Series A investment, valuing the company at $340 million. In just 3 years, Sarah went from having nothing to a net worth of $231 million. She was on top of the world. But there was still one thing left to do: go back home. But what do you think happened when Sarah returned home to the family that had abandoned her? Was she looking for revenge, or was there something deeper driving her? What would you do if the people you love betrayed you, took everything from you, and left you for dead? Would you fight back? Would you forgive them, or would you let them go? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Stay tuned, because things are about to get even more intense as Sarah faces the truth and the family who thought they could break her. You won't believe what happens next. If you've been enjoying this story so far, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss the next chapter. And of course, share this with anyone who loves a powerful comeback story. Sarah Martinez once believed that family was everything, but that belief was about to be shattered most brutally. Imagine waking up to the idea that your whole world is a lie. Your family, the people you trusted, the ones who were supposed to be your greatest supporters, had betrayed you in the worst way possible. But Sarah, she didn't know any of this yet. She was still living in the dream, still thinking her future was secured, that the inheritance her father promised her would come as planned. Everything seemed perfect when Sarah, 27 and 8 months pregnant, sat down at the dinner table with her family that night. They were celebrating the life she had ahead of her. Her father, Robert Martinez, a proud man in his 60s, raised a glass to his daughter. Sarah's smile was radiant, the kind of smile you have when everything is falling into place. "To my brilliant daughter," Robert said, his voice full of pride. "Harvard MBA, pregnant with my first grandchild, and about to inherit the family business. Sarah, everything I've built is yours." It should have been a night of celebration. It was supposed to be the moment when Sarah could finally embrace the fruits of all her hard work. A Harvard MBA, a successful father, a promising future as the owner of one of the most lucrative construction companies in the city. But instead, as her father spoke those words, Sarah's mother, Patricia, sat at the table, wearing a tight smile, her eyes far from proud. Her brother, Marcus, barely lifted his eyes from his phone. His disinterest was evident, but what Sarah didn't know was that while her father spoke, a storm was brewing just behind her smile. 40% ownership of Martinez Construction, Robert continued, and $847,000 from your grandmother's estate. It's all yours when you turn 28. That's the deal. Sarah nodded, trying to downplay her excitement. "Dad, I don't need the inheritance right now. I want to earn my place in the company first. We've always been about hard work, right?" But her father, Robert, laughed and waved it off. "Nonsense, darling. You've earned it already." The dinner continued, but the mood shifted slightly as Patricia and Marcus exchanged looks, their eyes cold. They knew Sarah was getting the lion's share of the inheritance. They both knew it, and they hated it. Later that night, as Sarah went to bed, Patricia and Marcus stayed behind in the kitchen. The soft clinking of dishes could barely mask the venom in their whispers. "I can't believe this," Marcus muttered, his face contorting with anger. 40%? She gets 40% and I've been working at that company for 10 years. This is ridiculous. Patricia, her face tight with frustration, leaned forward. Your father always favored her, the brilliant one, the Harvard graduate. Her voice dropped to a whisper. This isn't about fairness, Marcus. It's about survival. Marcus blinked, confused. Survival? What are you talking about? Patricia's cold eyes locked with her son's. We can't let her take it all. Your father's health is failing. The company is worth millions, but it's all at risk. And $847,000 gone. That's a lot of money. Too much to just hand over to her. We need to act fast. She won't even know what. Hit her. Marcus leaned in, his voice dropping lower. What are you saying, Mom? Patricia's eyes glittered. I'm saying we'll take it all. We'll take what's ours before she even knows what's coming. When your father dies, she'll be left with nothing. We'll act first. By the time she's out of the hospital after giving birth, everything will be gone. The plan was set in motion with terrifying speed. Sarah, blissfully unaware, spent the next few weeks preparing for the birth of her daughter. She had no idea her world was about to come crashing down. Her mother and brother moved quickly, working behind her back. Patricia met with a lawyer, sliding documents across the table, her fingers trembling with excitement. The next few days would be filled with deception. Meanwhile, Robert, weakened by stage 3 cancer, signed legal documents under duress. His shaking hands barely held the pen, but Patricia promised him everything would be fine. We'll hold on to it for a little longer, Robert. We'll give Sarah the inheritance after the baby comes. She lied, knowing exactly what she was doing. The plot thickened when Marcus, working quietly behind the scenes, forged Sarah's signature on critical documents. He transferred funds, liquidated assets, and funneled everything into a trust, an exclusive secret trust that Sarah would never be a part of. Patricia didn't stop there. She sold the family home, the house where Sarah had grown up. Everything she cherished was sold off. The furniture, the old photos, her grandmother's keepsakes, all gone. Patricia didn't care. She was on a mission. They needed the money, and Sarah wouldn't get a cent. In the blink of an eye, Sarah's inheritance was wiped out. The trust was set up, the money disappeared, and Sarah, still unaware, was left holding on to nothing but the promises of a family who had turned their back on her. It was Sarah's 28th birthday when everything changed. She was in labor, breathing through the contractions, the pain gripping her body with each wave. She kept thinking about her family. They'd promised they'd be there. Her mother, her father, her family had always been there during the important moments, right? Her phone buzzed with missed calls, dozens of them. Her heart raced as she looked at the screen, seeing her mother's name flashing over and over again. Mom promised she'd be here, she whispered through gritted teeth. Why is she not here? The nurse, seeing her agitation, gently asked, Is your family coming? Sarah shook her head, the tears threatening to spill over. They said they would. They promised. But they didn't come. Not when she needed them most. And then, when Sarah finally gave birth to little Emma, her excitement turned to devastation. She reached for her phone, expecting congratulations, expecting to hear from the people who were supposed to be the closest to her. Instead, she saw a text message from her mother. It was short. It was cruel. We sold the house, transferred the accounts. You're on your own. Her world was shattered. That was it. The family she trusted, the family she thought she could rely on, had just cut her off without a second thought. She had nothing left but a newborn baby and the promise of an inheritance that had vanished. Her hands trembled as she held the phone. She tried calling again and again, but it was too late. The betrayal was complete. But Sarah wasn't the type to lie down and accept defeat. She had a mind for technology, a brilliant mind that had been ignored and stifled her entire life. And in that moment, with her daughter Emma in her arms, Sarah made a promise. I will give you everything they tried to take from us. Everything. The fire inside Sarah reignited. She had lost everything that mattered, her family, her inheritance, her future. But there was one thing she hadn't lost, her drive. From that day on, Sarah didn't waste time wallowing in the unfairness of it all. She got to work. She poured her heart and soul into what she knew she could do best, create something that would change lives. She started coding late into the night, often with Emma asleep beside her in a laundry basket. There was no crib, no luxury, just a mother determined to rise above it all. The idea came to her in a flash, a maternal health app that used artificial intelligence to predict complications in pregnancy, saving lives before it was too late. She'd worked on this project as part of her Harvard thesis. It was something revolutionary, something no one else had done before, but no one had believed in her then. Not her family, not the business world. But now, with nothing left to lose, Sarah set out to prove everyone wrong. What do you think happens next? How far would you go to prove your worth when the people closest to you abandon you? Would you rise and create something bigger than anything they could have imagined? Or would you let their betrayal destroy you? How do you think Sarah will respond? Is revenge the answer, or will she find a way to move forward? Let us know in the comments below. The moment Sarah had been dreading had arrived. Her 28th birthday should have been a day of celebration. Instead, it was the day she learned the brutal truth about her family, the one she had trusted, the one she had fought for her entire life. While she was laboring in a sterile hospital room, they were making decisions that would change the course of her future forever. Sarah had always believed in the idea of family. Blood was supposed to bind you. Love was supposed to be unconditional. But when Sarah's eyes landed on that text message, we sold the house, transferred the accounts. You're on your own. She knew that love had never been a part of their equation. Her mother's words stung more than the pain of childbirth. We need space. As if the past years didn't matter, as if Sarah hadn't spent the last months planning, dreaming, working toward a future she was promised, a future now stolen from her. But even in that moment, as the tears fell and the reality of her abandonment sank in, something inside Sarah shifted. This wasn't just about inheritance. It wasn't about money. It was about everything they had taken from her, everything that was hers by right. Sarah's jaw tightened. She whispered to her daughter Emma, I will give you everything they tried to take from us. Everything. Sarah wasn't one to take things lying down. She'd been handed nothing but hardship in the last few months. The inheritance? Gone. The love of her family? Gone. Her future? She'd have to create it from scratch. Her hands still shaking from the shock, Sarah pulled out her phone. The calls to her family went straight to voicemail. She dialed again and again. There was no response. They had vanished from her life, her mother, her brother, her father. But what they didn't know was that Sarah had something far more powerful than any inheritance. She had her mind, and she had a drive to survive that couldn't be extinguished. Sarah was a brilliant tech mind, a genius in her own right, but for years, she had been held back by her family's expectations. It was time to stop living for them. It was time to stop begging for their approval. The weight of the betrayal hung heavy, but it was also a spark, a match that ignited something deep within her. The idea had been planted in her mind years ago during her Harvard MBA thesis, a maternal health technology that could predict complications in pregnancy, artificial intelligence to save lives. She had almost abandoned it, convinced it wasn't worth pursuing, convinced she wasn't meant to succeed in tech. But now? Now it was her only shot at redemption. Sarah's tears didn't last long. As she sat in that hospital room, holding Emma in her arms, she made a vow. I will build a future for us. No one will ever take it from us again. From that moment on, Sarah focused on one thing and one thing only: building maternal tech. She used her knowledge, her skills, and every ounce of energy she had to bring the app she had envisioned to life. It wasn't easy. The road was long. The first few months were hell. Nights spent coding while Emma cried beside her in a laundry basket, her tiny body bundled up. Days of rejection, of being told her idea was too risky, too far-fetched. No investors wanted to take a chance on a single mother with nothing but a laptop and a dream. But Sarah refused to give up. And then the breakthrough came. She finally secured $120,000 in seed funding from Techstars, an accelerator that saw potential in her idea. It was just the beginning, but for Sarah, it was everything. She worked tirelessly, building the app, perfecting the technology, and learning how to run a business. She partnered with hospitals and medical professionals, refining her product. Her maternal health app became more than just a tech project. It became a lifeline for thousands of women. It could predict preeclampsia, gestational diabetes, and preterm labor with 94% accuracy. It was revolutionary. And soon the world began to take notice. But here's the real question. How did Sarah go from struggling single mom to tech mogul in just a few years? Was it pure determination? Or was there something more? Let me ask you this. If you were in her shoes, abandoned by everyone you loved, would you have been able to keep going? Or would you have given up? Let me know in the comments below. Sarah's hard work began to pay off in ways she never expected. Investors were finally coming to her, eager to be a part of her success story. Partnerships with hospitals were growing. The revenue graph started climbing. Media outlets were picking up on her journey. Single Mom Builds Health Tech Startup became a headline, and then came the big break. Sarah secured a $50 million Series A investment, valuing maternal tech at $340 million. It was no longer just a dream. It was a reality. And with that reality, Sarah's life changed forever. From living in a tiny studio apartment to being on the cover of Forbes, Sarah had built something that not only mattered, it saved lives. She was no longer just a woman who had been betrayed. She was a force to be reckoned with. At 30 years old, Sarah's net worth had skyrocketed to $231 million. The future she had fought for was no longer a distant dream. It was right in front of her. She could finally look at the family who had abandoned her and say, I did this. Without you. Without your money. Without your support. But while Sarah stood on top of the world, there was still something missing. There was still unfinished business. A part of her couldn't forget what they had done. The betrayal still stung. The family who had taken everything from her still haunted her thoughts. Here's where the real question lies. Sarah had risen from the ashes. She had built an empire. But would she forgive the people who had stolen everything from her? Or would she make them pay? Was there a place for forgiveness in Sarah's new life? What do you think? Should she seek revenge? Or should she let the past stay buried? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I'll be reading them, and I'm curious to know what you think. The time had come for Sarah to return home, to the family who had betrayed her. And when she arrived, she was ready. Ready to face the truth. Ready to make them face what they had done. But how would they react? Would they even recognize her? Or was there something even darker lurking behind the facade of family that would send Sarah to the point of no return? Stay tuned, because the next chapter is going to be one you won't forget. If you're enjoying this journey so far, make sure to like the video, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss the next chapter in Sarah's story. And share this video with someone who loves a comeback story. You won't want them to miss what's coming next. Sarah Martinez had spent 5 years building an empire, carving out a future for herself and her daughter that no one, especially not her family, had ever believed she could. Now, as she approached her old family home, a wave of mixed emotions washed over her. She had become a force to be reckoned with, a billionaire, a tech mogul. But there was unfinished business. There were questions, confrontations, and a reckoning that needed to happen. She pulled up in her black Mercedes S-Class, the sound of the engine purring as she parked outside the rundown Martinez family home. The lawn was overgrown, the paint peeling from the walls. It was a far cry from the home she once knew, and the stark contrast between the life she had built and the crumbling home in front of her wasn't lost on Sarah. Her 5-year-old daughter, Emma, sat in the back seat, peering out the window with wide eyes. "Mommy, is this where you grew up?" she asked innocently. Sarah's lips curled into a small, bitter smile as she looked at her daughter. "Yes, baby, but it looks different now." Emma couldn't possibly understand the weight of the words, but Sarah knew all too well. The home that had once been filled with love and laughter was now a symbol of everything that had been taken from her. And she was about to face the people who had stolen her future. When Sarah knocked on the door, it took a moment before her mother, Patricia, opened it. Patricia, now in her late 60s, didn't recognize Sarah immediately. The shock that crossed her face was evident as she blinked, her frail hands trembling slightly. "Can I help you?" Patricia asked, her voice confused, almost shaking. Sarah stood tall, her gaze unwavering. She was a woman transformed, not the frightened daughter who had once begged for her family's approval. She was a force, a woman who had built something from nothing. "Hello, Mother," Sarah said, her voice cool and controlled. Patricia's face went from confusion to recognition, and then to fear. She took a step back, her breath catching in her throat. "Sarah? Is that... You look so... different?" Sarah finished, stepping past her mother into the dimly lit house. It was nearly empty, furniture sold off, personal belongings gone. The walls that once held memories of her childhood were bare. "What are you doing here?" Patricia demanded, her voice cracking. "I came to see what you built with my inheritance, with my future, with everything you stole." Sarah's voice was firm, but there was a coldness to it that cut deep. Patricia collapsed into a worn-out chair, her hands shaking as she fumbled for the words. "The company failed, Sarah. Your father passed away 2 years ago. The medical bills, they were more than we expected. Marcus made bad investments. We lost it all." Her voice wavered, almost as if she were pleading for forgiveness. Sarah's eyes narrowed. "You lost my money, my inheritance, the money that was supposed to secure my child's future." Patricia, desperate, tried to explain herself. "You were pregnant and alone. We didn't think you could handle it. We were just trying to protect you." Sarah clenched her fists, the weight of the betrayal sinking deeper. "So you abandoned me? Left me homeless with a newborn? Stole everything and then ghosted me?" Her mother's face softened for a moment as she glanced at Emma, still standing by Sarah's side. "Is that my granddaughter?" Patricia asked, her voice filled with longing. Sarah stepped back, pulling Emma closer. "You lost the right to call her that 5 years ago." Patricia, overwhelmed by guilt and regret, reached out, but Sarah backed away, her emotions a mix of anger and pity. "I'm sorry, Sarah," Patricia sobbed, her voice cracking. "We made a mistake. I never wanted this. I never wanted to hurt you. But now we're losing the house. Marcus is deep in debt. We have nothing left." Just as Sarah was processing her mother's words, the door creaked open. Marcus, her brother, stepped into the room, looking disheveled and defeated. "Mom, I got your text about Sarah?" He froze when he saw her, his face draining of color. "What are you doing here?" he asked, his voice defensive. Sarah didn't flinch. "I could ask you the same thing. Still living with Mom at 37? Marcus stood his ground, but his eyes betrayed him. He could feel the power shift in the room, the weight of Sarah's success looming over him. "The economy's been tough. Construction jobs dried up after Dad's company folded." Sarah's voice grew colder. "The company you helped steal from me?" "We didn't steal," Marcus retorted, his voice rising. "Dad signed everything over legally." "Funny," Sarah said, pulling out a stack of documents from her designer bag. "Because my lawyers found these: forged signatures, fraudulent transfers, bank statements showing you withdrew $340,000 in cash over 6 months. Marcus's face went pale, his eyes darting between Sarah and the documents. You hired lawyers?" "I hired an entire legal team," Sarah said with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "I know everything, Marcus. Every dollar. Every lie." Sarah's gaze turned toward the window. She could feel the weight of the moment, the power that had shifted in her favor. The people who had once held all the cards now had nothing. "I could destroy you both," she said, her voice low and filled with authority. "One phone call to the DA and you'd both be facing fraud charges. Prison time. I have all the evidence." Patricia's voice broke as she fell to her knees, pleading, "Please, Sarah, we're sorry. We'll do anything." Sarah turned back to face them, her expression hard. "Anything?" she asked, her eyes flashing. "Where was anything when I was sleeping in my car? With a newborn? When I was choosing between diapers and food?" Marcus, trying to regain some control, muttered, "We thought you'd be fine. You went to Harvard." Sarah's laugh was bitter. "A degree doesn't pay rent, Marcus. It doesn't buy formula. It doesn't keep the lights on." She pulled out her phone and showed them a Forbes article about herself. "But you were right about one thing. I didn't need your money." As Sarah glanced around the house, her gaze landed on a foreclosure notice lying on the table. She picked it up slowly, letting the weight of the situation settle in. "You're losing the house?" she asked, her voice calm, almost detached. Marcus looked down at the floor, ashamed. "We're 3 months behind on payments. The bank is foreclosing in 30 days. Sarah's gaze flickered over the notice and then back at her mother and brother. "How much do you owe?" $180,000, Marcus said quietly, "but we don't have it. We don't have anything." Sarah paused for a moment, her thoughts swirling. Then, without a word, she made her decision. She turned to face them, her voice steady but cold. "I'm going to make you an offer. Once. Take it or leave it." Patricia and Marcus exchanged glances, their eyes filled with hope. "I'll pay off the house. $180,000. I'll also set up a $50,000 trust fund for each of you. Enough to get back on your feet," Sarah said, her words cutting through the tension. Patricia's face lit up with gratitude. "Sarah, thank you. I knew you'd—" Sarah held up a hand, silencing her. "I'm not finished. In exchange, you will sign legal documents admitting to the fraud. My lawyers will hold those documents. If you ever contact me, Emma, or anyone in my life again without my explicit permission, those documents go to the district attorney." Marcus's face darkened. "You want us to confess to a crime?" "I want insurance," Sarah replied, her voice ice cold. "You betrayed me once. I won't give you the chance to do it again." Patricia reached out, tears in her eyes. "Sarah, please. I know we don't deserve forgiveness, but I'm your mother. Doesn't that mean anything?" Sarah stopped, her back turned toward them. Her voice was steady, but it cut through the room like a knife. "You know what I learned in the last 5 years, Mom? Family isn't about blood. It's about who shows up, who holds you when you're breaking, who celebrates your wins. She turned around, her gaze unwavering. You weren't there when Emma took her first steps, or said her first word, or had her first nightmare. My employees were, my business partner was. The single mom I hired as my first employee? She was there. She's Emma's godmother now. Patricia's shoulders sagged, and Marcus stood frozen. Sarah opened the door, sunlight streaming in. Goodbye, Mom. Goodbye, Marcus. I hope the money helps you build something better than what you destroyed. As Sarah walked away with Emma in tow, she glanced back one last time. This was it, the final chapter of a life that had been stolen from her, and now she was in control. The power was hers, and nothing would take it away from her or her daughter again. If you've made it this far, be sure to like the video, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss stories like this. Drop a comment below and tell us, how would you have handled betrayal like Sarah's? Would you have forgiven them or taken a different path? Share your thoughts and I'll be reading them. Thank you for watching.